Thank you for watching and joining us today. We'll be getting started shortly. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Distance Learning with Common Sense. I'm Jennifer Ehehalt. I'm a Senior Education Manager at Common Sense, and I'm here today to introduce to you one of our most amazing educators out there, Shari Wladis. Shari comes to us from EdTechEASE. She's a elementary educator, and she's here to talk to us about digital citizenship and books. Welcome, Shari.
Hello, thank you for having me this afternoon.
We're excited to have you. Let's just get started. Remember that this will be posted on our Common Sense Education YouTube channel. So everything is going to be recorded and found there. And you can also find some professional development credit hours, the certificate as well. So without further ado, Shari, why don't you get us started with a little bit about yourself?
So thank you so much. My name is Shari Wladis, and I run a consulting company called EdTechEASE. Currently, I'm working with a K-8 parochial school and also helping to start a girls' high school get started. And in my other spare time, also do some presentations about technology and integration, as well as literature integration into the schools. So,
wonderful.
And was a kindergarten teacher for about 6 years. So picture books were my lifeline.
Understandably. Awesome. So when we first met, way back when we started to plan out our session today, you had such a great story about books. Would you mind sharing it with us real quick?
Sure. So two that I remember us talking about was when I do have cleaning people come into my home. One time they left me a note and they were like floored as to the amount of books that were not only in my living room, but in my kids' rooms. And it really all started a long time ago when I taught special education up in New York, and I started buying books for my classrooms. And my fiance at the time, my now current husband, was like, what is all this books, and why are we buying them now? We have no children. I said, oh, we need them for the class, and we will use them for our children. And now I have, I don't even want to tell you what my attic looks like and my kids' rooms look like, as well as my office at the K-8 school looks like. And my dining room table is currently filled with books that are on my to-be-read list. So it's just a part of who I am. And I think it's a part of every classroom. It should be a daily part of that.
And I love that, and that's exactly why you're perfect for today's conversation. So let's get started here. So, in the session description that we put out, you mentioned this idea of literature lassos. I'm very curious and intrigued about what that is and how does it fit into digital citizenship?
So several years ago, I was co-presenting for Florida Association of Media and Education. And so it's a big presentation here in Florida for libraries and librarians. So we wanted to do something about literature and how it ties into the classroom. And through the conversation, my co-presenter and I kept using the word lasso, lasso, lasso. And before we were talking, we were like, that's it. That's the title. It's literature lassos. And, you know, what we mean by that is literature, particularly picture books themselves, are such a great way to start a conversation with elementary school, even middle schoolers, and truthfully high schoolers as well, that it just grabs their attention. And you could then branch off into so many things in terms of using it as mentor texts and just have conversations. And when we were talking about this in terms of digital citizenship, in picture books make the conversation easier. When you want to start talking about privacy and keeping your password safe and what to share on social media as you get into upper middle school and upper elementary school, talking about it from a character's perspective versus I saw what you posted last night makes such a difference because it takes it away from the students and they're more willing to have that conversation. It's similar to the conversation about my friend does this. Well, now you can talk about, for instance, if I pull one of the books I want to share, Goldilocks, hashtag Goldilocks. So much easier to share hashtag Goldilocks and what she shares on her social media and the good and the not so good makes such a difference because you're talking about Goldilocks. And just reading it themselves, they're like, Goldilocks, really? We're talking about Goldilocks? And you grab their attention, and now you can have a whole social media context. You can explain what a hashtag is meant to do and how it can support what you want to say, but it can also detract from what you want to say because people grab onto those hashtags tremendously. So that's really where I think it fits in every classroom every day, you know.
I do like that idea because we had mentioned like the idea of one-offs, and we'll probably get in that down the road. But, you know, I love the idea of a picture book as well. And I know you have a bunch for us today. So let's see what you have. And audience, you know, those of you watching and listening, we will make sure you have access to all of these book titles, all of the links to her ideas as well. At the end, we'll share out a complete list of everything she's talking about. There's so much here. You're going to think it's, you know, the holidays or your birthday, believe me. When you leave here, it's just so much good stuff. So sit back.
The next one I want to share is when Charlie McButton lost power. And what's fun about this book is, I mean, just look at his face. I mean, let's just start there. You know, his facial expressions when he loses it. And we get that a lot. Living in Florida, we've had our hurricanes and things like that. And it's a great place to talk about how we need to set boundaries for ourselves and create healthy digital habits. I know some people call them healthy media habits, but I tend to use the word healthy digital habits and what that means and how digital media can fit in our lives very well, but that there are times where we don't have it and we shouldn't have it. And this book is a great one to talk about social addiction and in terms of media and being addicted to our devices. It pairs really well with another one that you're not going to see the name, but it's on my list, but it's just a game. And the two of them would make a great combination, a story, a comparing and contrasting that you can do between the two books because they kind of approach it similarly but different. And if you're looking at a book as a mentor text, and we do that, how can we use picture books in the classroom and you use them as mentor texts? Charlie McButton is great for comparing and contrasting what his life was like before the thunderstorm hit and what it's like after. And then you can do a further comparison between the two stories. But the facial expressions tell such a tale in that book that's another place for a mentor text. If you're talking about how to read pictures, and we
Mm-hmm.
forget that in upper elementary school and middle school, that the pictures are meant to be read. Otherwise, why would we have illustrators? And so,
Picture power, right? Your picture
yes,
powers.
pictures tell 1,000 words. I mean, just even looking at Goldilocks, look at that with her, wearing what we all envision as, a prison garb. So, reading pictures is a great mentor text for when Charlie McButton lost power. Another one that I like to share today is called, let me grab it out, The Technology Tale. Okay. And you'll see I've got sticky notes up here because that is how I list some of the things that I want to list is the mentor skills that I want when I go into the classroom, and I also put them on a piece of paper so that I keep them in a big file folder. And you will get access to all later today. But Technology Tale is a digital footprint story, how that technology follows us beyond today. And one of the mentor sentences I wrote for this was actually, let me pop it open, was that it follows us beyond today, tomorrow. This is basically a young girl, but it talks about what colleges might be looking at, what jobs might be looking at, and what all is following her in this technology tale. I know we use the words digital footprint, and we even use the words digital tattoo, because a tattoo is even harder than a footprint to wipe away. And this is very vital for our students, and they don't think about it. And our parents don't think about it when they're talking about their students. So it's a great idea to talk about with parents as well, because they need to be modeling this for their students. And I would encourage you to share these titles, and if they're in your library, letting your parents take them home so that they can have these conversations at home as well. Because when you're discussing it at home, it gets very personal. Hopefully parents are watching their children's social media. But again, if we look at it from a character's point of view, and this young lady and how she hurt her technology tale and how she healed her technology tale, it could be really great. One of the things that the book also talks about is keyboard courage. And this is something I discussed with my children who are older and when they were young. So this is not a new topic, but keyboard courage, that it's so easy to say something in a text or on social media because you've got this lovely screen behind you and you're not really face to face with someone. So you get a lot more courage to say things that you might not say when you're talking to someone face to face. And that is a conversation to be had when you're trying to get kids to understand how to email. I've had this conversation in my K-8 school when we introduce emails to our 3rd and 4th graders, that you can't email a teacher with, "Hey, just wanted to tell you." It needs to be, "Dear Mrs. Wladis, I had this thought," or "I was looking at the paper that you graded." And we have to teach them those digital etiquette when we're doing it. And a keyboard courage is a great way to start that conversation. What's really neat about these books, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit, is that you're not going to talk about all these things in one shot. I mean, I'm not going to bring out Technology Tale and talk about keyboard courage or the THINK acronym that they call thinking gloves, that you can literally be thinking about it in each of your fingers as you're typing, and whether it's true and harmful and helpful and whether it helps somebody. But you want to bring these things back over and over again. And so these books can be literature lassos over time. And when the kids know the stories really well, the story becomes almost secondary because you've got these great ideas coming out of it that you can use. So go ahead.
I just love that idea of, the one and done is not necessarily true. You don't just pull this book out. It's like book day. And what a better way to really start to think about this stuff as we celebrate National Reading Month. The mini lessons, I just think they're really neat. And you've shared so many so far, using anchor charts, compare, contrast. I know you have a lot of resources and slide decks
Right,
and
and
Jamboards.
and for those of you who aren't using the Jamboards, it's a great distance learning strategy, because when you share a Jamboard out, and you can then have them put on their little stickies their ideas. And right now in my K-8 school, we're a little hybrid. We have some kids at home and some kids in school. And the teachers who have used Jamboards with their hybrid classes, the kids at home on Zoom have just, their eyes light up, like, oh, I don't have to like send this into you on the Monday pickup or something like that, because they can put it right on a sticky note and you can see they're learning and they're participating with everybody else. And it's so great for them to feel included. And so there are some great Jamboards that I created and I made into backgrounds. So for those of you using them with first and second and third graders, and you're worried about those Jamboard backgrounds shifting, you don't have to worry about that. You just have to teach them really clearly that they have to just use their own sticky. And so I hope you use them and enjoy them, and drop me a Instagram or a Twitter and let me know that you're using them, because I would be thrilled to hear how you're doing that. But
yeah, just real quick, if you're not familiar with Jamboard, it's a part of a Google
Workspace, I think they're calling it now.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Workspace.
Free, intuitive, easy, and the kindness of Shari and sharing all of the backgrounds and backdrops make it really engaging for students and learners. So make sure you check that out. I felt that they were really cool. So I would love to use them too. So really good stuff there.
One last story that I want to make sure we talk about is the Nantucket Sea Monster. The title actually says a fake news story. The best thing about this was that this happened in 1937. So fake news is not new. Okay, it's old, and this literally went, for the time, viral. It went across the country, and I guess I'm giving you a spoiler, but it basically was a story about a whale that a fisherman saw, or he thought it was a sea creature. He hoped it was a whale, and the story was the Nantucket Sea Monster. It was actually a publicity stunt by Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and they were trying out a new balloon. And this went viral for that time period. It went across the country, which took weeks, but it was a fake news story. So it's a great introduction to kids about fake news, and that this is not new. We just call it fake news now. I'm not sure. Back then they called it okay? So it has a different connotation. But again, you're able to talk about digital literacy and digital etiquette, and how we can corroborate stories. We can talk about primary and secondary sources. We can talk about, where'd that go? Text features, because it has maps in it. It also has timelines and glossaries and citations. And this is all from one story, one quick story. Wow. That can come back again and again. It also pairs nicely, if you're not familiar with these books. These are so much fun. These Two Truths and a Lie. This is for kids, the Step Into Reading. And then there are several of these Two Truths and a Lie. And I just did this with fifth grade the other day, a different set of these books, because that was actually my lead-in to how you could look at a website and decide how you can corroborate what's there, what's true. And after reading 4 stories, one child got the right answer, But it was great for critical thinking, why they thought that and what their reasoning was. And then we broke into groups to talk about websites, and found a really good brain pop video to go along with it. And we jumped into the Common Sense Media digital citizenship curriculum, which is a mainstay in my classes. So, that's what
I really like that, because as you mentioned, our curriculum, there are so many educators that, had to move their digital citizenship conversations to the forefront. They may have been dabbled in, maybe really, haven't gotten started. And I do feel like you're presenting a way that makes it feel a little easier to have these conversations through characters in a picture book. Because not everyone is as comfortable as, the next person in teaching. Different concepts about digital citizenship. Many of the concepts are new to us when we really go past the layers of just oversharing, digital footprint. So I do think this is a really nice way to incorporate reading into that topic. So I love that you shared that with us.
It's again, you talked earlier about the one-off, and that often digital citizenship seems like an add-on. Like I have to also teach this.
Yeah.
But if you're teaching it along with, language arts mental skills, or if you're teaching it along with science or critical thinking, or like in the case of Two Truths and a Lie, you're talking about backing up your arguments and writing how you think about things, it really does add to your language arts or your science or even your social studies curriculum without being an add-on, that you can talk about it naturally. And, using, if you only have the resources to buy one book, think about all you can do with just one book, that you bring to your classroom.
That's what I was thinking. All the different things you were saying and talking about, whether it was a strategy or, hitting a standard with one book, which leads me, my burning question, I think, when we talked about this was how accessible are these book titles? Like at your public library, within your school libraries? Because I know sometimes the newer books are a little harder to get because they're checked out a lot or whatnot, but I'm just curious.
Most of the books that I showed you today were all paperback, which of course makes them a little bit more accessible. Amazon does have some of them on a Kindle version, which makes them accessible. And if you're talking about distance learning, so easily screen shared. And I know lots of teachers doing that these days. I would also, my suggestion to you would be your public library. And right now, they're not getting the use that they were, but they will do drop-offs. They'll leave bags outside of their library with your name on it for you to pick up and drop off, in a safe social distancing manner. Your school library, your classroom library, these are great books to add, like I said, one a year. If you're working in a team, if you each got one and you shared them, that would be great. I did look on Epic. Because currently Epic is free and they don't have a ton. So I took it upon myself to suggest to them that they add some of these titles. I also did the same thing with VOOKS, VOOKS, which is visual books. And I got a nice email back that said they were going to look into possibly adding these books to them. So
good, because I did my homework too, and I went right into Epic after our conversation. If you're not familiar with Epic, it's a whole library of digital books, so it's free right now for educators. I mean, they have every and any title you could possibly want to look for. But as you said,
not so great on digital citizenship.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding some of them, especially the ones we talked about, because you intrigued me. And you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. I'll reach out to them a little bit, and the rest of you too. If they hear from us, maybe we can get these on Epic too to help us with accessibility and cost.
So maybe if we all ask, they'll end up
there. Everybody's homework, everybody's takeaway. No, good. I'm glad that you looked. I looked into that too, and books.com was the other one. I think Susan put that in the chat for you. So we have that in the chat, so check those out. Awesome.
And
I was wondering.
One of the resources I did do, and I'm not affiliated, but it's just an easy place, is I have an Amazon link to what I call my digital citizenship list. So you can always check the pricing on there. And again, I'm not affiliated, but I like that it shows the picture and that you can see it. But that's in the resources. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. I wonder if before there's one question that came in. Let's see. We have a question from our audience. Do you have any recommendations for how we can support read-alongs or read-alouds if we are distance learning still?
So I will tell you that when I had to step in last spring and teach kindergarten for a few months, and my first day of teaching kindergarten for this school was the first day we went virtual. We went, into lockdown. And what I did was just with a screen camera or an iPad, I will be honest and say I invested in a doc cam, but there's some free document cameras that you can use, and I would record myself reading the book. I recorded my husband reading one just to hear a different voice, and this way I was able to screen share it and I could stop and go slowly when the kids needed to repeat it. And that would be a great way then to use it as a mentor text, because then you could go back to the page that you want to highlight 3 days later and talk about keyboard courage, or think gloves to talk about technology tale, so that you have that right there on the screen for them. And if you're in a hybrid, it works out because you can still hopefully show it on your whiteboards, or you have the book right in front of you. So that's how I did read alouds last year. And then I even did some over the summer, because I had families who were like, my kids watch you every night for the last week. So again, it supports reading daily with the students. And some of our families who might not have English as their first language, it's great for them to be able to hear that and hear the fluency and the modeling that we want to do.
I agree. And the DocuCam is really important. In my experience, just especially with, the younger students, it's really hard for them to see you and hold the book.
Right.
And then read, and they can't really see the pictures. So I would highly recommend some type of digital tool to bring that book to life and see less of the teacher and more of the pictures and more of the book. Would be my
yeah, and there are definitely free ones that you can get on different devices that you can use. So it's really very helpful.
Yeah, good. I think we have another question. Let's see here. How do we use eBooks for such interaction? So a little, extending what maybe we just talked about, but eBooks. Going back to Jamboards or what other digital tools?
Or if you have a Kindle, or you have, anything like that, many of these books are available that way, and they make sharing super easy. And many libraries now are letting you borrow ebooks. And it's kind of fun, because it's like on your device, and then 2 weeks later, it's off your device without you ever even doing anything. So that is, a great way to share both virtually and in the classroom, the ebooks. So
very nice, very nice. So, this was such a really great conversation just to get started, on picture books, whether you're in deep or, the thought or concept. But, as an audience member, what are 2 to 3 takeaways you hope, something resonated, or tips?
So we often hear the words read aloud and mentor text, and people use them in the same sentence. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I would say is be careful with that, because when you read aloud, that's what it's about. It's about the story and the characters, and using different voices when you're reading, so that the kids hear the whole story. And of course, at the end, asking questions, and maybe even what was your favorite page. But once you've done that read aloud, it is now a tool. It is now a literature lasso for you to bring back. And you can say to them, remember last week when we read the Nantucket Sea Monster, that fake news story? And then you open it up to a page, and you just talk about the fact that look at all those different fonts that they're using on that page, and how you can incorporate that in your writing. But they're not asking what happens next, because they've already heard the story. And you can now use it as a mentor text. And that's really important, and a big distinction that we have to use when we're talking is how to do those things. So that probably is my biggest. And I encourage you to do a book a day. A book a day.
There you go. There's your ask, and I am glad you said that, because I do think there are a lot of folks, starting the year off with. I know there's lots of things going around where 48 books a year or 4 books a month, or So I love your small low hanging fruit. Read a book every day is the best.
Dismissal. Yeah. And
even as adults, a picture book, right? As an adult, how fun is it to just pull out an old children's favorite book or whatnot. And speaking of, some other takeaways I know you're not going to mention, but it's okay. I'll share it out. But, Shari has been so grateful to share book lists with us. So some of her favorites, or just some of her curated lists of books around digital citizenship. So we'll make sure you have access to that. And then also, if you're not familiar, she also shared with us a weeklet Wakelet's just a really fun way to curate all kinds of different resources you find across the internet, whether it's, Twitter, something on Twitter and an article, a video, a blog. And so I really felt that curated content too was really helpful in equipping you with all the information and resources and strategies you might need to get started with something like this if you haven't already. So we'll make sure we get that to you. Any other thoughts or questions, Shari, as we wrap up?
No, again, on both Twitter and Instagram. And if you're looking for a book, feel free to ask. And if I don't have it, I will probably buy it. And let's keep that a secret and not let my husband
Your secret's out. Your secret's out. No, that's good. That's good.
In the world, and then having a book collection. So
yeah,
I love to see how people are using other picture books. And my list is not exhaustive. And so if you're using one that I'm not, I would totally love to know that. So please share.
Yes, absolutely. We put Shari's information in the chat as well. And make sure you know that this is a recorded video. We did the recording, so you can find it on our Common Sense Education YouTube channel. You can also we'll make sure you get the survey form to complete if you need those professional development or continuing education hours. So make sure you grab that form. If not, it'll be located right under the recording on the page there. So we thank you so much, Shari, for taking the time to join our distance learning family today. I know lots of educators are going to be so excited with everything that you shared. So we appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.